Alrighty, hello everyone, welcome to Sinful Gaming. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. We are here to watch the Warhammer 40,000 reveals today. We don't know what we're getting. It could be Space Marines, could be Tyranids. We're going to find out which faction is getting the reveals, which faction will get their codex first out of the two, and which will get the model shown for the two as well. So we'll see a bunch of stuff today. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing some painting and hanging out. I do have some 40k. I sprayed them. I thought I had it sprayed already before, and then I realized just before stream, I don't have him sprayed. So we were going to try and be on brand tonight, painting this guy on my good old spray stick. If you haven't seen it, this is the Primaris Chaplain on the bike. He is a wicked model. He's going to be for my Black Templars force we've been building up. But I only just sprayed him like not that long ago, so unfortunately we're going to have to wait. We'll see if we can get to him later. In the meantime, I'll continue working on these Elder Scrolls minis that I was working on. This is Pantia Atena. She is from the Bards College. I'm a nice little support hero, and also in solo play, she can have some delve mode interactions as well, which is really cool. So yeah, we're going to get into painting her up. We have been working on a Steadfast Dragonborn as well, which is really cool. It's like a more defensive version of the Dragonborn, but been really fun getting them done. So we'll start putting the layers down on Pantia. So start the cloak in here with a bit of Steel Legion drab. But if you are joining us and you've got some hobby done, or you're doing some hobby, let us know what you're working on. And we're just going to start with her. We're going to start with getting this cloak all up and looking nice. I did actually manage to last night. I finished up my Tyranids from Leviathan finally, after just having a little bit of motivation lost in painting such a large force again. Thoroughly do enjoy painting my skirmish games now. So generally that initial sort of delve into a force, it feels like a slog when you're painting, that first lot of like 50 or 60 models. And then once you've got that first 1,000 points out of the way, you can slowly add new units in. I feel like that's when I feel a lot better painting, where I only have to go, I'm just going to paint another Tyranid unit or another Space Marine unit, etc. And for our 40k armies for the channel, we're very much at that army painting stage, that like first 1,000 points trying to get up and ready. We have been working on getting combat patrols ready as well. So that will be up, which will be fun. And so yeah, it's just building up this layer on the cloak. We're using Steel Legion drab. She, like in general, it's interesting painting Skyrim like after you come from like painting anything like Warhammer, because they are very drab in their color schemes. There's not a lot of color in Skyrim. The Stormcloaks are probably one of the most colorful factions with their like blues. Bushido, I certainly know about Bushido. I absolutely love the minis. Big fan of like Japanese history, and I love seeing them like bring some of that sort of to life, or like Japanese mythology, Japanese history. Yeah, Ryuji Bushido. It is one of the games on the radar. There's just so many. So yeah, definitely know about Bushido. I've seen it. I like the idea of the game. It's got this stray little strand of hair here. A couple of hairs twisted at the end of the brush. Very annoying. But yeah, so what do we reckon we're going to see? Do we reckon we're going to see Space Marines? Do we reckon we're going to see Tyranids tonight? No. Your money would be on Space Marines. I know a lot of people go like, it's rigged if it's Space Marines. But for me, it seemed more rigged if they put the Tyranids first, because, you know, Space Marines are the poster boys. Yeah, I'm in the Discord for Bushido, but yeah, I have tried to contact the company before, and I've not had much luck. Just to ask what their suggestions are and stuff like that. So unfortunately, not had a lot of reach out when asking what do they recommend to get started with, where does it just generally inquiring with them, trying to bring some sort of communication together, and I've not had a lot of success trying to get in contact, which makes it hard. So I like to be talking to the companies I'm playing the games of, because it helps me create content for them. You say that, Chad, but Marines won't get extra points. Marines will just win. They are the most popular faction in the game. So you got to think yes, it's Tyranids, but it'll be every Blood Angel, every Space Wolf, every Dark Angel, every Black Templar player will be looking to have those Marines. So, like, I would expect Marines to win. I will be gladly surprised if Tyranids do actually win. So they definitely are one of the more popular alien races in the game. All right. Well, let's do a little chat, because Sloth Bear's asked here, what might your predictions be for what's shown today? Everyone, if Marines were to win, what would be your top 5 predictions that we would see for Marine units, besides kits that are already in Leviathan that we know are coming separate? So, like, no guesses at a Ballistus Dreadnought might be shown, and all that. My hopes, right? So if I had 5 hopes, I would love to see new Assault Terminators, potentially in a dual kit with regular Terminators. Just a Terminator dual kit would be really cool. I would say some sort of jump pack troop, whether that is Assault Inceptors or some variety. Primaris Scouts would be really cool to see. It sounds crazy, but I'd love to see like a Primaris version of like either the Vindicator or the Whirlwind. Bring like, so we have essentially like the new Predator, new Land Raider sort of things. Like, give me like a Whirlwind, Vindicator, those alternate sort of tanks, and a Primaris Flyer. Yeah, I'm trying to. Well, that should be really cool. So now we're just starting to highlight up her hair on Pantia. Reveals Hades. What are we? 8:50, hour and a half, roughly, just over. We don't know. It'll be Space Marines or Tyranids. It'll be the range of which one ended up winning the little narrative campaign they did. You're catching us right at the start of our stream. So we've only been going for, what, 15 minutes? Models. So it'll be the rest of the reveal for whichever faction won that narrative campaign. I have no idea. Like, they may pull something like that and go, "Oh, it's a tie," and reveal both. I have a feeling that, like, you might be onto something there, Hades, that, like, that could very well be a thing of, like, it's a tie, so we're going to show you both. I mean, like, I don't care who wins. We're going to see them both anyway. I'm excited for new Marines. I'm a Marine player, like, more than I am a Tyranid player. And so I'm quite excited to see Marines, but Stephen, who comes on and plays games with, if you've watched any of the battle reports, you'll have seen Stephen in a ton of the battle reports. He is a really big Tyranid fan. They're sort of like his 40k army that he started 40k with, so he's really excited. Hades, I could not agree more. There are two things I think that Primaris does so well, and it is Phobos and Gravis. I love Phobos and Gravis armor. Give me more of that. In the Leviathan box set, the Apothecary Biologist is by far my favorite miniature in that, and that's because he has cool Gravis armor. I probably would like the Lieutenant, but I don't like. He's a little bit too busy with Tyranid stuff. I don't know how I feel about it. He's a cool model, but he's not really my favorite piece. Good morning, Jason. I'd like to see Assault Terminators get an update. Primaris Scouts would be really cool, and I think like you would do them in Phobos armor. Scouts would just take Phobos armor now, or like a lighter version of Phobos. Maybe like light Phobos armor. It's not like the full enclosed carapace like we see on the rest of the Phobos troops, but a lighter version of it could be really cool. Some sort of assault marine. Assault Inceptors would be really cool. I'd like to see a Primaris flyer and probably a Primaris like tank. But when I want a Primaris tank, I want like one of the support one. So something like a Primaris like Whirlwind or a Primaris Vindicator, Primaris Hunter or Stalker, something like that. Yeah, I don't mind him. I just feel like, I do like Gravis better than Phobos, but Phobos definitely is one of the best things that Space Marines have ever gotten. Like, you can say what you want about the Primaris lore, but the Primaris armor, all three of the like main suits we've got, absolutely amazing. Yeah, I mean, I really, the more I think about it, the more I would like the idea of like Primaris Scouts in like light Phobos armor. Like a lighter carapace, like how the Scouts regularly have that sort of lighter carapace, but like Phobos up that sort of design a little bit. Because the initiates, the neophytes from the Crusader squads are awesome models. I really, really dig them. Phobos Librarian is amazing. I will agree with you there. I just feel like that's like some really simple character updates, isn't it? For like all the things like we have a Phobos Librarian, but we don't have a Phobos Chaplain. So go Phobos Chaplain. We have and we don't have Gravis of either of the two. So Gravis Librarian, Gravis Chaplain. Yeah, like Phobos armor definitely makes sense now. You see like the Scout Troopers in it. I suddenly believe that Space Marines have legitimate Scouts. Eliminators are never cool. I mean, both of them. Eliminators, and I really love Eradicators as well. Once again, if it's Phobos or Gravis, it's pretty darn cool. Like, they're pretty cool minis. I do have a bit of Phobos now because I've accumulated a couple of little Phobos. I'm going to do, because I've got the Space Wolves Combat Patrol to start some Space Wolves up. Obviously, that includes Hounds of Morkai. My Space Wolf force will probably be. I love Reavers. I think Reavers are really good in the new edition with their Battle Shock abilities. But yeah, I've got like that box set for Phobos. It's pretty heavy because you've got the Invicta Tactical Warsuit, which supports Phobos really well. You've got the Hounds of Morkai. I'm going to probably do a Space Wolf force with quite a heavy contingent of Phobos within it. Oh, nice. Phobos only. I mean, I would assume you were thinking of starting with the old Combat Patrol, which has actually disappeared off the Australian web store. Both that and the Necron one have gone. So I do wonder what's going to happen with the minis that were in that box. Who knows? Maybe if we see Space Marines, maybe we're going to get, suppressors with alternate weapon options. Be an interesting one. Yeah. Oh, the Vanguard stuff. Yeah, the Space Marine Combat Patrol that was the half of whichever box set it was that had all the Phobos is gone from the Oz web store last I checked. While I was going through, like looking at like what ones I had to do start collecting videos for, I could not see that, nor the Necron one. Did not pop up on my search. That was a pretty sweet set, Hades. No worries, Hades. All right, so Pansy's coming along nicely. She's a little bit drab in all her colours, but that is Skyrim. She's got a lot of browns on her colour palette. She's not really from one of the factions that has a lot of colour to it, but we're trying to stick. So now we just need a little dry brush on our clip and a dry brush on the floor, and she's pretty much done. And we need to pick out a little bit of gold detail on her. Tiny bit of tusk of fur on the fur around her. For my Bang Blade Brown. Oh, I might do it a little bit too light. We're going to go with Gorthor, actually. And wood. come along nicely. Pantia Tenia, pretty much done. We'll just do a little bit of gold on it. A little bit of, actually, no, I didn't do gold, I did silver on it. Just got a little bit of silver, so we'll find a nice little shiny silver to do. Thoughts on the range announcement for cities? I mean, it is actually less than what I expected. I expected to see Dread Spears and all that disappear, the core of the Dark Host disappear. I fully expected the Wanderers to disappear. I expected the Free Guild range to disappear. Yeah, it was exactly what I think a lot of people are expecting. I fully expect Wanderers going means Kurnothi are probably a thing coming, and will be a Sylvaneth expansion at some point. I think that's where that idea is going. And Wood Elves are obviously going to have a home in the Old World, which I'm fine with. I got a really cool Wood Elf painted force that was Wanderers for Age Sigmar. That'll just get swapped over to Old World. It is what it is. Like, I think any Cities player was expecting this sort of stuff to happen. I think more than any, Phoenix Guard were on borrowed time. We all have sort of expected the last High Elf models to go in some Lumineth range at some point. So I'm not surprised at the Phoenix. It's the only remaining High Elf kit. All the other High Elves went. I think, that maybe, considering they're not going to be a massive support for the Old World, maybe that is, an idea that we are going to see Phoenix as the next sort of temple thing for the Lumineth. Just having a look at one of the miniatures I've got here. I can't really tell what's on his base. All right, so I've got a bit of bone on his base that we need to do. Hammer, hello mate. Hope you're doing well yourself. We are just doing some hobby and waiting for these Warhammer 40k reveals. Oh, nice. What are we painting up, Beardhammer? Oh, nice. Battlesmith for your Firestone. Awesome. Currently just working on some Elder Scrolls Call to Arms minis. Just finished painting a tenor, and now I've got the Steadfast Dragonborn I'm working on. I'm finishing up, just doing his base. I just kicked something. Just gonna wait for that to dry. In the meantime, we can start tackling Miol the Lioness. Just doing ball brown. Just going to make a slight adjustment to my arm. I think we've broken here. I need my knife as well. Oh. Alrighty, so let's take in all this leatherwork base coat. Has There's just little bits of fur all over her clothing. She's got like fur on like all the cuffs of every bit of freaking armor. Like a mosquito in my room. Should the absolute crap out of me. Right in front of my face. So yeah, we are slowly making our way through the old Linus. Just trying to pick out all these details, get all the base coats down, and then we can throw the wash on. The cool thing about like something that's like a lot of natural tones like Skyrim is you can just brown wash everything. One wash will do the entire model nicely, bring it all together at the same time as well. Robin, hello mate, how are we? Hope you're doing well. I'll be back in 1 second, everyone. Need a hello, I'm back. Sorry about that, everyone. Nature calls. We're currently painting Mjol, the lioness from Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. John Craddock. Put all the base coats down. So now ready to wash the base of the Steadfast Dragonborn. I will gladly take that as a compliment. I'm just getting old, that's all it is. There's no fire in the brow, it's just all the wrinkles. It's just all wrinkles now. Getting old, man, getting old. I say that. I'm not incredibly old, but I feel it. My days of youthful vigor are gone. So that's the base washed for him. We did finish Pantia Atania, so she is all done. Nice sort of muted brown tones. What am I working on? So, I'm currently working on some Elder Scrolls Call to Arms minis. So, I just finished the base, got some yoga to wait for her to dry, put a wash on her. Just put the wash on the base of the Steadfast Dragonborn and finished Pantia Atenia. And now we have Janessa, the Mercenary Archer. Now, if you played Skyrim, she is the lady you can find in Whiterun in the Hunter's Lodge, in the Hunter's Shop. So just working my way through a couple of Elder Scrolls minis. Should have best got some Janessa as well. Oh, nice. I do have my Sylvaneth out over there. They will be touched at some point. No worries, man. We'll be live for another little bit because there's a reveal show in about half an hour now. So we'll be live while that happens. I'll be live for probably another hour and a bit. Yeah, all 40k on this one. And it'll be a reveal of the range of whichever ended up winning the Battle of Orgrim. So it'll be Tyranids or Space Marines. We don't actually know who won it. Yeah, 40k is fine, man. I enjoy 40k. Fair enough, man. Nice. I just can't get into Battletech. I get bored when the armies are the same on both sides. It's like Battletech is. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I never grew up with Battletech as like a setting, so the game just doesn't appeal. Infinity is cool. I do like Infinity. I've got the a couple of starter sets of Infinity actually. John, yes, there is a GW review today. So we're going to see whatever faction revealed in its entirety for its new release of the Tyranids or Space Marines, whichever one ended up winning the little narrative campaign with your submissions. And I hope people submitted their results from their Leviathan box sets. I know I did, and I'm a nasty person. I voted for Space Marines. I have more Space Marine armies than I have Tyranids. I also have, a decent amount of Tyranids already put together as well. Like, but for me, it is Space Marines. Like, I voted for Space Marines. I'm sorry, everyone, but I did. Black Space Marines. There was definitely times you could run all Space Marines, all jump pack Space Marines. I think 6th and 7th. 6th and 7th with the detachments, there were some formations you can make that were definitely all jump pack Space Marines. I played against them a bunch. Stephen, who plays regularly on the channels, has a all Flesh Terror jump pack Marine army, and I used to play against that all the time. Yeah, I don't know. Were they really that bad? I quite enjoyed both those editions. Like, I played probably most of my 40k growing up in those editions. I remember them fondly. I don't know. I don't mind those editions. I think the mission layout of those editions was by far probably the best mission layout we've ever had in 40k. I know some people didn't like the random cards and objectives and stuff. All right, it's Janessa's base coat's done. We put a wash on Mjol. Chapter House is interesting. Like, it's hard to not see GW's point on that for me. I completely get why GW did what it did. Chapter House was completely stealing IP. Like they were blatantly labeling their stuff on their website as Space Marine and Space Wolf. Like, at that point, like, they are responsible for a large reason why we no longer see a lot of customizable minis and stuff like that. I'm all for creatives, but like, you can't steal IP. Right. Yeah. No. That whole situation is why we don't see customizable minis from a lot of game companies now. Yeah. Chapter House, there was a lot of things that did okay, and and you know what? There are probably some things that have been taken down by GW nowadays that wouldn't get taken down if it wasn't for Chapter House and how far they pushed that how far they tried to push everything, and indeed did push everything. If they didn't, there would be, I think, a lot less sort of cease and desist on many different projects and many different things from Games Workshop. If that Chapter House stuff did not go down, GW would not be so tight on having to defend its IP, because now it's set precedents. Mantic is doing amazing things. I can't say enough good things about Mantic at the moment. Like I've made it no shock that my biggest thing when like people ask me to cover Mantic stuff, and we do cover Mantic. Currently, only do Kings of War. But the YouTube one wasn't as bad as people say. A lot of them like either were received jobs and like it's fan-made stuff. It's no different than any other companies have done before. And a lot of the ones that kicked up a fuss were the less appropriate things to the GW law, and then generally the ones that got kicked. You know, like the actual good stuff, like Astartes and all that, got picked up. And then you had the silly stuff that got taken out. But there are still ones that make 40k content, and they didn't have to take it down. Flash Kits is still around, and all the Flash Kits 40k stuff is still around and still allowed to be up on YouTube. They just have to share ad revenue, as any such thing has to when you use that. It's I mean, you work in the industry, you know what your limits are. Like, I know how far I can push with certain things before I get in trouble from someone. It's what you need to know. Like when Astartes was making that much money, as much as it was only a matter of time. Like GW don't care if you're not competing with them. As soon as you're competing with them, like you become a problem. It's business. In the end of the day. Oh, I'm not grumpy, man. I've worked on both sides of the coin in that, and so I get both sides of the thing. Scott Moss, hello, mate. How are we? Hope you're doing well. We are quietly waiting for the next lot of GW reveals to see what we have. Oh, pardon me. Nice. Yep, idiots and evil. John couldn't agree more. So many idiots like push things too far. Like it's like I was saying to Robin, like the whole chapter house thing, I think has set a standard for how GW now has to act in these things because someone went too far. Where if everyone just made shoulder pads, didn't say they were for space wars. They go warriors of space, wolf style. Like there's so many ways you can get around it, and like companies still do. Yeah, chapter house. When they were outright having Azrael Vect models on their website and all of that, like it was only going to lead one way. We've finished 2 of the characters now. So that is Pantia Atenia and the Steadfast Dragonborn, both done now. Oh, Scott Moss slowly getting through 40 blood. Slowly getting through 40 Blood Reavers. Awesome, man. I have a ton of Blood Reavers I do need to get done. I've got a Khorne army sitting there, not painted. This is Armada's looking really cool. So this is going to be a fun model to work on. I have the Courier. If you played Skyrim, they made a model of the Courier. So should be about just under 20 minutes, and we should have the reveal show kicking off. No, it'll be in 15 minutes. Hades? All right, let me know how the sound is, everyone, on the screen. Got something to deliver for you. Your eyes only. But they were a friend of yours. No, I have not. Oop. I can't say I know too much of Starfield. I'm not much of a Starfield fan. I don't play a lot of video games or anything like that. Generally comes as a surprise to people. Like, I just don't play video games. I play Pokemon. That's pretty much my extent of video gaming. It's fun enough. Yeah, I don't really play Elder Scrolls Online either. I play Skyrim still. After I wash on Janessa. Yeah, like, I just don't play a lot of video games. Yeah, Elder Scrolls Online when it came out, and I quickly lost interest in it. Didn't have the same. It doesn't feel like it's not other things like why I enjoy Skyrim. I like just playing it. Manchester Warriors are a Space Marine chapter, man. So they are one of these chapters that rebelled against the Imperium along with Drew and Blackheart and the Active Claws. It was also the Executors and the Lamenters chapters that rebelled. And the Mantis Warriors effectively went on a crusade of penance because they decided to turn back against the Imperium. But yeah, so they rebelled against the Imperium. You better go. All right. I do think I need to lean in when I talk. How is my audio now? Because we had this issue last time. I don't just need to lean in. Unfortunately, my computer just won't stream at the moment. So I'm having to use the laptop screen, and it is a MacBook, so it is for what it is. Awesome. Yeah, we had the same problem last time. Captain Devil is this one. Yeah. So if you didn't catch the part about Mantis Warriors are one of the captains that rebelled against the Imperium in the Battle of Warhammer, along with the executions actually caused one of the Mantis captures. They ended up surrendering along with the Mantis, and the executions were surrendered as well. And they had to go on a 1,000-year penance crusade. Now, all three, I believe, the Execution was the only one that came out in somewhat of a good stead. The Mantis Warriors went into that and came out of that campaign very, very depleted. The Lamenters were virtually wiped out. And yet, Execution was the only one that came out the other side. It's widely believed that the Mantis Warriors were quickly defeated and the Inquisition executed them. They are really cool color scheme, like bright green gold. They have an Australian color scheme here. Serial killer? No, the same color scheme. In fact, it's from Uruguay. So one of my mates had something really interesting found. So looking through the third edition Warhammer 40k book. Can't hear me over music, and I am go. So I'll probably turn the music down a little bit. This is the Anthelion project. That was one of Forge World's supplement. What was I talking about? I forgot. Friend 30. Thank you, Scott Mars. Completely lost my train of thought there. So one of my friends found something really. Cool. Anyway, yeah. So Scott, as I was saying, my friend was having a look through the third edition because he swore he had heard the name Von Ryan's Leaper before, and sure enough, looking back in a tiny little like side passage script part of some person who was executed, and his notes, he was like data logging all the different Tyranid forms and where they sort of fit and evolve from each other. He found that the Hormigaunt had a split off one that was a question mark around it. That was called the Von Ryan's Leaper, all the way back in third ed. What do I think about half elves leaving Cities of Sigmar, Hades? Like I expected it. I think we probably all knew like high elves. The high elf stuff I especially expect. Like a bunch of us knew it was on. Which of these chapters is known to have fought of the last defense of Cadia? Space Wolves, isn't it? Yeah, because last defense of Cadia had obviously it wouldn't surprise me. The Relictors are near the Cadian Gate. Star Phantoms. But yeah, on the Cities of Sigmar stuff, I think we all expected the Phoenix Guard to be on borrowed time. They eventually would go into. I think like we're probably going to see Phoenix stuff for Lumineth. Like that would be my thought train on that. I don't think we'll see too much Darkling Goblins removed unless we've got plans soon for Malarian. I think the lack of that moving suggests we don't have anything planned for Malarian for quite some time. I'm not surprised the Scourge remains. Like, yes, I know I'm a big fan of Scourge Privateers. They've really built them up as one of sort of like they're almost the main Dark Elf faction that gets mentioned in every city. Like everything, every time there is like things, you get Scourge Privateers mentioned. They seem to be the ones that get mentioned. Yeah, that could be. I mean, I fully expect, like, my personal thought on the matter with Malarian is I think Malarian is just going to be an expensive sort of pain, and we're just going to get a book called Druchi later down the line, or, you know, like, what is it, Umbraneth down the line, because the Daughters of Cain and the Cainite Shadowstalkers and all that already refer to themselves as Umbraneth. The Witch Elves refer to themselves as Umbraneth. It's the term for Shadow Elf, and they already exist. It's not some mysterious thing that some people think, like, Daughters of Cain are Umbraneth. So I fully expect that we will see. I think Malarian will just go into the Daughters of Cain book, and that'll become Umbraneth instead of Daughters of Cain. The Wanderers make sense. Wood Elves. It doesn't seem like it. Like we've kept we lost Wanderers. There's still a massive Dark Elf range in that book. With the Dark Elf on the first Order Potential. The only one that was lost was Shadow Blades. The Dark Riders still exist in there. The Assassins still exist as well from them. We still have all the Dwarvings, but none of them are being lost. We still have, I think you'll definitely be able to run a Darker Force, and you'll definitely be able to run a Dwarven Force. Which Space Marine Homo was reduced to a band rock. I have the second size of the Emperor. I know that one. I don't think enough people get stuck. Like, we have too many books up already. There are so many armies. Right, and is it really a sequel? Look, and if that's the route we go, I'm not against that, Hades. Like, if it is a lot of coalition bits and pieces, so instead of, we have all this, it just is like we have coalition battles. We won't need to buy our armies, we just need to buy units. Like, if I got the choice, right, between seeing an entirely new faction, like something like, I don't know, the Silent People, or, something like even Kragnos' people in Age of Sigmar, and that meant that Doc had to have
Hello and
They just had
welcome to the Battle for Oghram preview online. I am Eddie, and
Right,
I'm
here we
joined
go.
by the wonderful Alex. Alex, thanks
Thank you
for joining us.
How are you doing today, Eddie?
I'm good. I'm excited to see some cool new miniatures.
Ooh, yes.
And to find out who has won the Battle for Oghram.
Indeed.
So, for those of you who are tuning in who maybe don't know what happened in the Battle for Oghram, this was a global battle event where everybody who got a copy of the Leviathan box was able to send in the results of their first battle played with it, or a battle played with it, to us, and then to decide the fate of a planet in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Either the planet would be saved by the heroic actions of the Space Marines, or it would be devoured by the forces of the Tyranids. One of the things we'll find out today is who won that battle.
Indeed.
We'll find out very soon. And then the other thing we'll see is whichever the victor was, we'll have a look at their cool new models that are on the way later this year. Did you get a battle in, Alex?
I did indeed. I built the entirety of the box. I played against my brother, actually. And for me, the Space Marines won. So what about yourself?
I didn't actually get a chance to play a game with the box. I have been playing quite a lot of Warhammer 40,000, but I didn't actually play my Leviathan, much to my shame.
But if you had played, who would you have wanted to win?
I mean, I am an impartial observer.
Yeah, of course.
In this, so I couldn't choose a side. They're all my favorites. Yeah. But you played another game as well, didn't you?
Yes, and it didn't quite go.
What happened in your second game?
In the second game, my Space Marines didn't survive. Not for very long.
Okay.
But luckily, we used the first result. So the Space Marines,
That's right.
as far as the competition is concerned, the Space Marines won. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you ever so much for tuning in, guys.
All right,
Absolutely
so
loads
let's
of you in the
see
chat
what
already,
we
which is really
can.
cool. Over 10,000 of you, 12,000. If you played a game at home and you're in the chat, let us know how your game went.
Yeah. If you did lodge a game,
we know
let
some
us know if
people
you
might
logged
have
the game.
just not played a game and reported their thing. But that's
Indeed,
okay.
yeah.
But we know plenty of people did play their game and sent results in. So if you played a game, let us know how your game went.
Yep, sent it in. We played Space Marines.
Lots of Tyranids.
A
lot of Tyranids in the chat there.
They are going to be so disappointed when it's Space Marines that win.
Like, love your energy. It's great to see. Do let us know where you're tuning in from as well, guys. It's always great to do these previews and see thousands of Warhammer fans tune in from all over the world. That's really great.
I
One of
can't
the
wait
nice
to
things
see
about this battle is
that chat explode when it is the Space Marines.
Join in. So we did genuinely have entries from, I think, almost every continent in the world, hundreds of countries and loads of places, which was really cool. So yeah, great to see that energy. Loads of people tuning in. It's a mix of Portugal, Texas, Nottingham, Germany. Awesome.
Interested to see if anybody's tuning in from the Tacoma Open.
Of course, yeah. It might be quite early in the morning in the Tacoma Open right now, but
yes.
they could be working up. They could have worked up. The other thing happening this weekend is the Tacoma Open in America, and after this show later on in the day, there will be live stream games.
That's exactly it. Like,
this doesn't satiate
the internet will say Tyranids because the internet likes to go against the grain and doesn't like the poster boys. Where
well.
everyone
A
that
few more
is
people to
collecting
do
at
shout
home,
outs for on the
90%
camera
of
today.
those
And helping
games
us
would have
run
been
the
Tyrion,
stream, we
would have
have
been
Nick,
Space Marines.
who is
Also, you got to
helping
remember
make
that
sure
every
all
Black
the
Templar,
technical
every
bits
Space
work
Wolf, every
properly.
Blood Angel,
And we've got the
every
wonderful
Dark
Notley,
Angel
who is
player
moderating in the chat.
would
As
have
well.
voted
If
Space
you are in
Marines.
the chat, please be nice to Notley, and if you're not nice to him, then he'll kick you out. So you know, be on your best behaviour. Very cool. Okay, right. But a few minutes to kill before we get to the results. Alex, what Warhammer 40,000 hobby have you been up to recently?
Ooh. Well, as we said,
Yeah,
been
I
the Leviathan
like
box,
Space Marines still make up like a
desperate
actual
for
percentage
Space
by
Marines
themselves
in
on
the
top
squad.
of 40k
I've been
of sales for the
converting,
company.
Salamanders.
Nice. What's the nature of the conversions?
Lots of fire. If anything's got a sword, the sword is on fire. If,
Of course.
I've got plenty of the Forge World heads. I know it's not lore accurate, but
So I reckon they've still got a few kicking around.
So
in a vault somewhere.
those beaky helmets that they brought out for the Salamanders, they just look absolutely fantastic on the Terminators.
Well, one of the nice things about the Stern Guard in the Leviathan set is they do have some kind of relic bits of armor, don't they? So they've got bits of iron armor, shoulder pads, and some Mark 7 helmets and things like that.
Marines,
Some nice Salamander
there's a Marine.
box, actually, because you've got some melter kits in there as well, haven't you?
That's it.
You've got some flamethrowers.
I think people.
Let us know as well, guys, if you've managed to paint your Leviathan setup. We have seen some very industrious hobbyists who've already managed to kind of fully prime and paint. And well done to you if you have fully painted either the whole set or even half of that set at the moment. I managed to get hold of some of the Tyranid models a little bit early and painted up in my High Fleet Mantis color scheme. So they're very kind of vivid greens and blues and reds. Yeah. It's a kind of an assault on the senses. So the assault phase starts at color selection, I always think.
You also painted a Screamer Killer on its own, didn't you? In the
I did. I painted
old school colours.
When I was a kid and looking in like the window of Games Workshop Liverpool, there was a
I
Screamer
did dig his. He did a really cool Screamer Killer. If you haven't seen Eddie's one,
because I was only 9, I couldn't afford it. But now I'm a grown up and I can buy my own things. So I bought one.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Eddie's
classic
Screamer Killer, go check out his Twitter. He posted it.
He doesn't fit anything else in my collection. He doesn't fit in my army. He'd look very silly if I put him on the battlefield. But I now have him. He's in my cabinet at home, looking very nice.
I remember a friend of the family gave me a couple of Tyranids when I first started, and he was one of them. And these arms kept coming off because he was the old metal miniature, so heavy. And I regret at one point I traded him for Belisarius Call.
Call's pretty cool though.
Oh no, Call is amazing.
I mean, that's actually a net game in terms of arms there, which probably isn't true for most trades.
That is true.
Yeah, but yeah, both very cool models. Very cool.
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Let's see if anyone else in the chat there has managed to. Yeah, a few people let us know they've successfully completed their armies. That's cool. If you have finished painting your forces, either Tyranids or the Space Marine, do share it on social media. Hashtag Painting Warhammer or hashtag New 40k. It's always really nice to kind of just click on those hashtags and have a look through what everyone has been up to. Yeah, very cool. What's your next Warhammer 40,000 project, you think, Alex?
Ooh, once I finish them, I have some orcs, actually. It's
nice.
The first time.
Yeah, I actually finally finished the Tyranids the other day, which is really cool.
Listen out.
So we've got Leviathan all painted up, which is awesome.
Oh, that's nice.
So I've
some blood drinkers for my Space Marines on that, for those who did see them.
50% done. There was an awful lot of stuff on my list.
Have you painted the Squig yet?
No.
So the Squig and the Grots are not only just the best models ever, but also like game winning, genuinely awesome. So that Grot has almost without fail every single game nets me about 3 or 4 points. Just about half the point to score, but you know that. Never mind, that's not important. The important thing is that he contributes.
He's key.
Yeah, he's clutch, absolutely.
What about yourself?
So I've got I've been painting some Gene Stealer cults recently. So I've been expanding the army a little bit because they're really fun to play with in the new edition. So I've already got quite a big army of those. I'm adding some things in. So I've got a Ridge Runner and some new characters. And then after that, I've got a big.
People should buy more Lunef though, Hades. I completely agree.
So I'm going to have
I'm going to be working on my Lunef sometime soon.
Samhan Red flying around because again, basically all of my projects that I do are things that I wanted to do when I was a kid and weren't able to do. So I remember, I think it was the 3rd edition Warhammer 40,000 rulebook had like a really glorious spread of the Wild Riders, just filling a whole page across an ice battlefield, and it just looked awesome. And you also had the Craft World expansion for Codex Eldar that had the Flameheart character on his little weird jet bikey conversion thing. So I'm going to see if I can fit him in as well.
That's very cool.
But yeah, it's probably not the best way to run an Eldar army, but I think I'll do all right. Yeah, nice. And I spend my time on there. It's going to make them look real pretty.
That's it. At the end of the time,
I've got a nice big orc army that I'm happy to play with, and I've got a Gene Stealer army, and they're having a good time at the moment. So I don't need to rush the army. Take my time.
Nice.
Make them good.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right. I think we're ready.
doing for time? Oh, we are closing in. I think we've got about 1 minute left before we can get to our first reveal video. If you are watching in the chat, guys, do let us know what Warhammer 40,000 projects you're up to as well. If anything catches your eye, Alex, you want to shout out any particularly cool projects that
will do.
Shown up. Lots of people, liking.
Somebody else.
I do have some Necromunda. I want to get more.
So I started
more
painting
I'm quite excited for the new rulebook.
when Deathwatch Overkill came out. So at that point, none of the cults had been established. So I sort of made my own up to fit with the Tyranid army that I started painting before that. So it's the Cult of the Mantis, which is the a subsidiary of High Fleet Mantis, which is my Tyranid High Fleet. Very cool. So yeah, I made them up because there wasn't any IP when I started. But there's loads of cool stuff now. And if I was doing it again, I'd probably do Bladed Cog. Because I really like the idea of having a kind of uprising on a Mechanicus battlefield and mixing lots of bionic-y stuff in. But that didn't exist when I started, so I didn't think of it. So if I was doing it from scratch, that's what I do, but I didn't, so I haven't.
There's a lot of people that seem to have started.
Nice.
Awesome, right?
Escher is probably my favorite.
As I say, I am an impartial observer. Space Marines equally cool. They're both great. Right. Okay. We can. I think. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, guys. We can now cut to our first video, which will announce the winner of the battle for Oghram. So hold on to your seats, guys.
Alrighty. Here we got Space Marines or Tyranids post.
As the Grendulous tendril uncoiled across the Formidire system, its ravenous swarms descended upon the high world of Oghram. The planet's skies darkened with spore storms and billion-strong swarms of winged bio-horrors, and it seemed Oghram was surely doomed. Yet, the Imperial defenders stood firm. For every tide of Tyranids that overran artillery emplacements or boiled through breaches in Imperial fortifications, another was crushed beneath the treads and guns of massed tank formations, strafed to ruin by relentless wings of gunships, or cut to pieces by coordinated Space Marine strikes. The hunger of the Great Devourer is not so easily denied. Like a wounded beast, the Tyranid swarms reacted as one and lashed out with ferocious force. In the planet's last hours, what vital relics and personnel could be salvaged were extracted from Oghram at great cost in rearguard troops and escorting void ships. They left behind a world that seethed with Tyranids in their billions.
No. Oh, thank you. Tyranids won.
Oghram was doomed. With its fall, the entire Formidire system, including the vital anchor world of Sanctum, was placed in greater peril than ever before. Reinforcements are coming, and there is a whole galaxy to fight for.
Oh, Sanctum's a really interesting one. Sanctum being in trouble because that is the chapter homeworld of the
So there we go. The results of the battle for Oghram are in. It is a Tyranid victory. So congratulations for all of you who are rooting for the Tyranids and who contributed and played your games, sent in your results. Thanks so much for all of you who joined in. Really cool to be able to be part of this kind of cool moment. And then you can see there we've got some kind of lore as
also
well.
the additional
planet,
bits of
which is in your Warhammer 40,000 rulebook, by the way. I can't remember the exact page number, but you can go in there with your purple pen and scribble that out now because it's been consumed. So a few bits of details for you guys who are tuning in. A Tyranid victory, of course. We had over 44,000 results registered, which is really cool.
that is true.
Early on in the campaign, it was very, very, very close, like incredibly close. The lead changed several times in the first week, and at several points there was like 1 or 2 votes in it, and it was we had thousands of entries, and it stayed within about 10 votes of each other for ages and ages and kept like swapping. The Space Marines edged ahead at the end of the first week, and I think at that point we put an update out into the world and said this is the results as it stands. Space Marines ever so slightly ahead, and at that point that seemed to galvanize the Tyranid players and fan base perhaps, and then we started to see the results swing in slightly the other direction, and once that snowball started, it didn't really stop, and the Tyranids came out on top. So final result, 53% to the Tyranids, 47% to the Space Marines. So there you go, guys. There you go.
That's awfully close. I remember asking for an update a little while ago, and you said that it was literally, I think it was 18 games in it, and given the thousands and thousands of games. Has any of our campaigns ever been that close?
I think this is probably the closest one we've had. Certainly early on. What quite often happens is that after about one day, it's very apparent which way the wind is blowing, right? So we were like, oh, it makes our lives much easier as well because we get to plan this event really far out and we know all the things that can happen. But you really kept us guessing right up until the last results were coming in. So yeah, very, very close, very tense, and really cool. But thanks ever so much for tuning in, guys. What that means is two things. The first of them is that some of the people who entered will actually win some prizes, which is cool. So those people have been reached out to already. So keep an eye out on your inbox for that. We got 5 winners basically who get to win some cool stuff for entering, which is cool. But what most people have tuned in for today is to have a look at the new miniatures for the winning faction. So we can now take a look at some of the new Tyranids. We have a few videos to run through, quite a few new things on the way for Tyranids. So without further ado, let's have a look.
Alrighty, what are we going to see?
Film.
Oh, yeah. New Gene Stealers. New Gene Stealers. I'm all for this.
So some brand new Gene Stealers. So very, very cool. Gene Stealers, obviously an absolutely iconic part of Warhammer 40,000 lore. Alex, you know all about Gene Stealers. What are these guys about?
Yeah, so these guys, as you said, they've been around for ages. In fact, they were possibly one of the first things that the Imperium encountered for the High Fleets.
I think this is like the issue with 40k. Like, as much as they look really cool, they're much more dynamic, they look really fun. 40k is a lot of updating old sculpts at the moment, where Age of Sigmar is getting a lot of new stuff. Still is going to be, you know, kind of, I think the most exciting Tyranid stuff for me in like the previous box set were, you know, like the Neuro Tyrant,
widespread,
Barb Gaunts,
because you'll often get them
the Von Ryan's Leapers, that sort of stuff. The same goes I couldn't really care less.
A hive where they're just awaiting the day of ascension with the cult, or there'll be, say, a whole colony of them on a Space Hulk. So these guys could be anywhere, and they probably are everywhere.
Yeah. So if you're in the 41st millennium, you're probably never more than about 20 meters from a Gene Stealer. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I would say for imperial reasons. But,
fair enough.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. But this is a really exciting kit for a bunch of reasons. One of them is that it's great every time we see like a really classic kit reimagined. These are really cool dynamic miniatures. It's a long time coming for a new multi-part Gene Stealer kit. Obviously, you can use these in a few ways. You can absolutely put them straight into your Tyranid army as Gene Stealers. I'm quite sure that a lot of Gene Stealer cult players like myself will also.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at the Cities of Sigmar, perfect example. Like look at those compared to the Freeguild troops.
Into a Gene Stealer cult force. There's a few things worth calling out about the kit itself, aren't there?
Yes.
So I think we've got some close-ups in the next picture, so we can talk about some of the options, which I think for the most part are aesthetic, but still you can lean into and make this unit the one you want it to be.
Indeed. So you can see there in the top left the Imgal head with those little feeder tendrils, so that if there's any brain matter left, they can
delicious brain.
See yummy what's going on. And I believe there is enough of those in the kit to make the entire set Imgal Gene Stealers.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So if you've got you particularly like that aesthetic, you either want them to look like, you know, first contact Gene Stealers from the moons of Imgal, or you've kind of lent into that kind of horrors from the deep kind of vibe for your Tyranids, and you've got lots of Lictors and Death Leapers and stuff like that, then you can lean quite heavily into that aesthetic and go for Tentacle Face.
That's it. Yeah. And then we've got down at the bottom here. So is this the proboscis that they can use to infect people?
I think it is, yeah. So that's the thing that's going to be implanting the eggs into the unfortunate hosts. It's probably best not to think too much about exactly how that works and exactly what it means for the hosts. But yeah, unpleasant things happen to you basically once Gene Stealers get within.
The tentacle head does look a lot crisper than the old one. I will say that the Immergal head.
Or the
looks a lot nicer than the older ones.
The ovipositor.
That is indeed the correct name. Yes, the place that eggs come from. So a few color schemes on there as well. Obviously, Gene Stealers have their kind of normal, very recognizable purple and blue palette, which is the one you can see top left there. That is the one they tend towards when they're left kind of out in Space Hulks and things by themselves, which is quite kind of ties in quite nicely to the Leviathan color scheme. But you can also paint them obviously in line with whatever the Hive Fleet you've got. So if you've got Hive Fleet Kraken, as you can see there on the right, they look perfectly cool running around in carapace, bone and red, or whatever other color palette you've got your Hive Fleet.
I love the dynamism of these, as you said, because these are obviously like an update of an old kit that, yeah, it had some great running kind of poses to it, but these now, you can imagine them running through like a space hulk corridor or a ship coming, bursting through a door.
Yeah, it would have been like would have been cool if like they did
walls, that
like
kind of thing.
it doesn't
This
sound like
really
we've got
does
rules
feel
to the
like
McGraw Gene
these
Stealers.
guys, and you can
That'd
see
been
now
really
they've
cool
got,
to have like being
they're-
able to
they're coming
play like a
straight
unit
through.
of your McGraw
Yeah, I
Stealers.
like the elongated arms they've got as well. So I think if you look at the length of the talons and the length of the arms compared to maybe some of the older Gene Stealers we've got, they seem more alien and more weird.
Yes.
So they've got that kind of weird tyrannid arm, and then they've got their much more human-looking digits that you can imagine opening doors and things. So they're just like absolutely horrible, terrifying monsters from space. But I'm absolutely going to get a bunch of them and put them on my armies. So it's going to be great. Right, so that's one unit. That was cool. It's nice to see some new Gene Stealers.
Yeah.
That's tick one off the nostalgia list for Tyranids. I think there's might be a few more things on the way. Let's have a look at the next unit.
Oh my god! Right, we fully expected this, did we not? Once again, right, just look like Hormigons. There's some really cool dinos. Oh, okay, that's a new gun. That's a new gun. Okay. All right, that's interesting.
So, some new Gaunt options for your Tyranids. There is a new multi-part Hormigant unit, which is very cool, and you've got an expansion to the Termagant unit that we saw first in the Leviathan set. So, if we have a look at the Hormigants first, so this is a kit that has been in plastic for a little while, but certainly has been showing its age a bit.
Yes.
So, very cool to see a new, much more detailed, very cool, very dynamic unit of Hormigants. They are absolutely recognizably the Hormigants that you kind of imagine in your mind, but the level of detail on them, the dynamism, the speed that they're kind of displaying, is just much cooler. Kind of a
you know what's annoying about that
2 decades
Termagon
more
stuff though?
version
That
of
means you're going to have to buy
development, I
new
suppose, versus
boxes of
the last time we saw
Termagons.
Hormigants.
Otherwise, you're not going to have
these
special
guys,
weapons in your
they're
Termagon.
the basic battle line for the Tyranids, and they'll get dropped onto planets and ships, you name it, just in their billions. And they make up for the quality with quantity. And they've got all the teeth, all the claws, because even though they're a little bit fragile, they'll take fire and they'll die. But, if you put 10,000 of them on the other side of the battlefield, they're just going to wash over it like a wave.
Yeah, and they're quite fast as well. So they tend to be the wave of gaunts that kind of hits first to tie up enemy units. So they're pretty deadly if you're fighting against something like guardsmen or guardians or fire warriors or something. They can definitely chop up light enemy infantry. But the thing that they kind of excel at really is just getting loads of them up into the middle of the enemy army, tying up tanks, stopping.
I mean, the Hormigons look nice. The Hormigons look visibly different
these
than
are
the other
great
ones.
to kind of block units.
You can clearly see the update on them.
So a really cool unit on a lot of people's bucket list as well for the Tyranid units they wanted to see. So there you go. Hormigants ticked off. Some more of those on the way. There's a nice closer look.
Dude, so there's miniatures. One down the bottom right, the like really leaning forward ones. They look really cool.
And of course, you get a Ripper Swarm.
And a Ripper Swarm, yeah. So a few of the Tyranid units come with a Ripper Swarm. So by the time you've kind of collected a Tyranid army, you will have enough Rippers to kind of put together a unit just by.
Gene Stealer Cults is 8th edition.
Ripper army.
I know 8th
I
edition.
mean, you could try to do a Ripper army. I'm not
saying
sure.
It would be competitive, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, why not? Go for it. You do you, Alex. That's fine. So there you go. So Hormigants, very cool. We've also got some new Termagants. So Termagants, obviously, we've seen the first of those new Termagant miniatures in the Leviathan box. But this kit has got a few extra things that the Leviathan set didn't have. So Alex, do you want to talk us through what's new?
So as we saw in the Leviathan kit, they've all got flesh borers. So that's basically like a little borer beetle that's inside.
No worries, glad you enjoyed it, mate. You've actually been painting up all the scrolls waiting for this tonight.
Several different options.
Painted Pantia.
The classic kind of spine fists.
And Dragonborn.
Firing out little bits of chitin at the enemy. You've got the Devourers that you can see there on the vast majority of them.
Yeah. Instead of one beetle, it's just fires loads of grubs.
Yeah, like that at the end of that gun is basically just like rotting meat. And so when it fires those out, then the little grubs start to burrow in. There's a lot of burrowing involved. If it's not acid, if it's not digestive fluids, it's probably something that's going to burrow into you. But you've also got, you can see there on the left, that chap there with the shard launcher. So it's basically the same kind of parasitic weapon that we've seen with the barb gaunts. You've got in the middle there is the strangle web launcher. And then you've got the spike rifle there next to him. I believe you've got one of these, but the old school version.
So some of these are really, really deep cut harks back to some of the very, very early Termagant miniatures that came out in metal in 2nd edition, I think it was. So I've got a very, very old Termagant at home with a spike rifle.
So it's going to be an annoying part.
What these options do is they throw in some special weapon options effectively into your Termagants. So much in the same way that you might have a Space Marine squad or an Astra Militarum squad with like a plasma gun in it or a flamer or something, they give you a little bit of tactical flexibility to kind of throw in some other weird symbiote weapons. They just look kind of cool as well. So you've got a bit more option and flexibility in terms of what you want to do with that Termagant unit, which if you've been enjoying Tyranids for 20 plus years, also has like a nice little nostalgia.
I love the way the weapons are molded. So the way the Tyranids tend to work is that the weapons are actually a separate life form to the main body of the Tyranid. And you can see here just the way, basically like the flesh tubes come in and out of the guns.
Yeah, they're pretty grim.
It's just, obviously, we've improved the way we can make plastic and that kind of thing. You can get this level of definition into them. And it's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think the paint scheme on these, so these are the new weapons, basically got a nice close up on them. The paint schemes on these is really nice as well. So you've got, like, you can tell where the one creature starts and one creature stops sort of thing, so that the heavy metal team obviously done a wonderful job of capturing that. If you wanted to paint these much faster, you'd be well within your rights to just go, actually, you know what, everything that's chitin is one color and the armor plates are a different color. So you could paint these up very quickly if you wanted to with contrast paints and things, or if you wanted to kind of take your time over them and really make them beautiful models, I think you absolutely could. I really like the spike rifle. I think it's just pure nostalgia for me. That's really cool. But the one top right, sorry, remind me of the name on that one.
That is the Strangleweb.
The Strangleweb. I love how the tube is coming out of him into the gun in a sort of really weird parasitic sort of way. So a lot of the Tyranid weapons aren't. It's not like a happy partnership, is it? It's kind of sucking the life force out of the host beast to power the weaponry.
But then these guys are essentially dispensable.
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's just a walking battery for a gun.
The Termagants, when they were originally created, were kind of fighting in the Tyranids.
They were like white blood cells, weren't they? They were like they're running through to kind of do the jobs and tasks of the circulatory system. Almost.
And it's really nice to see the difference between the Hnagounts and the Termagants and the way the bodies are constructed, because obviously they're all gaunts. But these guys, they're a little bit more crouched down and compact for getting through those tiny tunnels, whereas the Hnagounts...
What are we thinking of the Tyranid stuff so far? I'm hoping to actually see like some new units.
So when the hive ships are kind of in,
I mean, this is as new as we've got, and it's weapons.
They're the kind of patrols that are around the hive ship and doing the tasks and cleaning out any kind of body who's foolish enough to try and board a hive ship. I can't think of much worse, to be honest, but I mean, some people might try it.
Well, yeah, the Death Watch probably give it a good go.
Yeah, they'd give it a go, yeah.
And then you just swarm on with Termagants.
Absolutely. Right. That's very cool. I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I think it's okay. We can probably jump ahead to our next one. So we've seen some new Gene Stealers. We've seen some new Gaunts.
Yes.
Here's some slightly bigger stuff.
Warriors? Oh no, we are getting a new Lictor. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, there's a glow up. We've seen the Death Reaper, he looks amazing. Okay, what the hell is that?
So, Lictors obviously have been a big part of the Tyranid force pretty much since they've been with us in Warhammer 40,000. But it's not just one new Lictor we've got for this new edition. Already, we've seen the Von Ryan's Leapers, which we saw in the Leviathan box set and the starter sets for Warhammer 40,000. We also have Classic Lictor.
Yes.
So, Alex, what are these guys about?
So the Lictor is basically, it's sort of the original Vanguard organism. The Lictors would show up on different planets. They've got chameleonic skin, so they can blend in, hide. They can assassinate key targets, cause a bit of mayhem. But they can also, you can see there with the feeder tendrils that say they've killed the commander, pop off the head, eat the brain, get some information, send it back to the Hive Fleet. And then they're the equivalent of, say, assassins and scouts. So you've got the lay of the land, you've got some information, and you've caused some trouble. So these guys, they scout well ahead, sort of in the same way that Gene Stealers do, but the outcomes are very different.
Yeah, so you'd have a few of the once you've basically got a few lictors on your planet, they also send that kind of call out.
Oh, that's a cool pose there.
So they tend to kind of somehow infiltrate into the planet ahead of time.
I
If they've got
dig
some
that
juicy
crouch
biomass,
pose.
they'll scout it out, not just calling the fleet in, but also kind of getting key intel, literally pulling information out of the minds of enemy commanders and things.
It's often one of the troubles when you've got, say, a planet that's been invaded, you've got lots of refugees coming off the planet. There's always that fear that there's going to be either a lictor hidden on board, chameleonized in the hold, or there's going to be some gene stealers on board. And I'm honestly not sure which is worse.
Yeah, so they've some options in the kit as well, which you can see there. So the first lictor we saw, very kind of I suppose poised and ready to pounce with the arms out. This one in the Behemoth color scheme is much more kind of crouched. So this one looks like it's mid stealth sort of thing. So you can imagine them tucked into the shadow in a rock somewhere, or kind of scouting around the edge of a building. They're quite big models, so these are slightly bigger than Tyranid warriors. So they're standing taller than like a Terminator or something. So even one lictor jumping onto a squad or something is usually enough to kind of take out a small infantry squad or threaten small vehicles and things like that. In game terms, they've got some really fun mechanics to kind of represent some of that stuff. So they get infiltrate, which means they can start kind of wherever they want to on the battlefield, almost not anywhere, but quite a lot of places. They have strike first, which means that even when they get charged, they get to kind of fight you first. They got lone operative, which means they're quite hard to pick out and target. They got stealth, which means they're harder to hit. They've got precision on their weapons, so that means that when they fight an enemy unit, you could basically like pick out the commanders and eat those first, which is really cool. And then to go along with that, they've also got an ability that when you kill enemy characters, you gain command points, which basically represents you eating the brain of the commander and getting vital intel sort of thing. So all that cool lore that lictors have always had is actually really well represented in the way that they play in the game now, which is really cool. But it's not just lictors, we've got more cool stuff. This guy, so this is a Neurolictor. So this is a brand new thing. We've never seen this guy before. It is a new variant on the kind of lictor genus. Alex, what do we know about Neurolictors?
So Neurolictors, yes, they're essentially a variant of the lictor. And their deal is basically to sow terror and confusion. If anybody was on the Leviathan, the big Leviathan live we did, I did a bit of a reading that involved one of the Neurolictors. And one of the things they like to do in lore is say you've got a battle line of troops, they'll spike them. Basically, it's referred to by the Imperials as the mark of the Neurolictor. And basically, a bunch of the guys on the battle line turn their weapons on their friends. They're panicked. They forget what they've seen. They might let other vanguard organisms through. Basically, it sows terror and confusion. And on the battlefield as well, if you're playing them on the tabletop, they can force enemy units to take battle shock tests. And if they fail the battle shock tests, some pretty dire things can happen.
Yeah, so it combos really nicely with some of the other abilities that you've got with Tyranids, that they do have a lot of kind of battle shock mechanics, don't they? So like if you fail the battle shock, then X happens, and they've got other ways of making you take battle shock tests.
I mean, that's cool. This is what I want. New Tyranid organism.
Battle shock, and this is basically another unit that does some of that stuff. It also fights pretty well, so it's still a lictor, so it's still got your kind of precision attacks and your infiltrating and your fights first and all that sort of thing. So it's another. If you want to lean very heavily into the kind of lictor archetype and have multiple vanguard organism-y things in your army, then this is a psychic tool that you can add to the already pretty horrible combat tools that you've got.
That's it.
So there he is in a cool color scheme there, just chowing down on some Drakari. So there you go. Yeah, but a very, very cool model. You can see the back of the model there. There's a weird kind of parasitic symbiote psychic thing. The more you look at the new Tyranid models, the more you find kind of weird psychic organism.
What do we think of the Neurolictor, everyone?
There's loads of. I've said before, you could absolutely paint them very quickly and just
be going down this
some bits that are bone
route,
color, or you can really spend your time and kind of paint all your weird little parasites and symbiotes and minor organisms in all sorts of different colors if you wanted to.
There's been a real expansion of kind of the psychic organisms with Leviathan's new.
A lot of brain, a lot of big glowing alien brain in the new Tyranids. Cool. So we've seen this model before. This is a Death Leaper. So the reason we've brought him back is just to give you a piece of information about how the Tyranid army can work. So obviously we've got the Von Ryan's Leapers, we've got Lictors, we've got the Neuralictor, and if you wanted to as well, you've got the Imgal Gene Stealers, which you can give kind of lictory looking tentacle faces. One of the ways that you will be able to play the Tyranid army when the Codex releases is you can effectively make them a Vanguard force. And what that does is it gives you a bunch of bonuses to your Vanguard style organisms like Lictors and Death Leapers and Neuralictors, and you've got enough models now that actually you can kind of just have those if you want. If you just want a kind of Mantis strikey weird army, you can absolutely do that. If you do that and you choose to take that kind of army, you can take Death Leaper as your general, which is pretty cool. So this guy basically is your Vanguard commander, I guess, and he wraps up all the rest of those Lictor-style genus species under his banner into probably one of the most horrific armies to fight against in the entire galaxy, and that's saying something because the galaxy is pretty awful.
So this guy, he's basically an advanced Lictor, and instead of just doing the kind of Lictory stealth, hidey, chameleonic thing, this guy's all about terror. So if one of your commanders has been assassinated and you know it was a Lictor, it may very well have been this guy. He's going to leave corpses everywhere. He's going to devour heads. But as you say, there's a really nice balance between, say, having this chap leading your Vanguard organisms, killing things left and right, regular Lictors going around, maybe damaging lines, but then at the same time the Neuralictor coming in, and your commander, if he's not been killed yet, he's going to go crazy. And you can imagine that once your command structure's gone, how easy it's going to be for the rest of the Hive to come in and wipe out everybody.
Yeah. So very exciting stuff for Tyranny players. Some really interesting ways to approach that army too. I think also I have a treat for painters there as well. If you're going to go for kind of really lean into that kind of chameleonic style, there's lots of very interesting ways you could approach the paint scheme for that.
Yeah, I don't mind the Lictor models.
Right. We're not done yet. We've got some more things. So we've seen the line troops, we've seen the strike troops, we've seen the infiltrating troops. They are going to need some fire support.
Yes.
So let's have a look
come
at
on,
one.
Biovores. That is the new Biovore.
So, as I think Raf said before we started this stream, bug guns never tire, which I thought was a great line. So, there we are. So, these are the new artillery beasts for the Tyranids. They are both refreshes, but really significant miniature refreshes of some classic units. So, first off, we've got the Biovore. So, Biovore has been part of the Tyranid since, I think, second edition. Changed a few times over the years.
Now, this is
aesthetic. I remember a very early one, and then it kind of became a bit orky, and then it became a little bit less orky, and now it is a very different kind of aesthetic, but one that I think is very cool and kind of absolutely in keeping with the idea of a
delivering artillery kind of aspect of it.
It looks like a kind of heavy thing, doesn't it? That kind of beds in, sort of ticks into the ground and fires.
Big claws you can see ramming into the ground to kind of give it that stability.
Yeah. So what do we know about Biovores, Alex?
So the Biovores, big living artillery pieces, after anchoring themselves into the ground with those big long chitinous spurs. As you can see there in the bottom right, those are the spore mines. So they basically keep a bunch of them in that sort of egg sacky looking bit at the back of the gun. And then there's a massive muscle spasm as they fire them out. And then the spore mines drift across the battlefield.
These are really, really sweet.
Land and immediately explode. They will float along and then explode.
Yeah. So can we talk about the miniature for a little bit to start with? So this is really different looking, I think, from the previous Biovore. So it has much more of a kind of almost crab-like insectoid aesthetic, doesn't it?
There's a almost tank-like feel because it's got almost like a beetle shell to it. You can imagine it scuttling, whereas before it was almost lumbering.
Yeah, a little bit clumsy almost. Yeah. So obviously one of the things about Tyranids is that they evolve, they get better at whatever the form is that they need to take to do the job properly. They'll eventually kind of reach it. The cannon on the back looks like it means business as well. It is a pretty scary looking gun. So in game terms, these do a few things for you. So people who've been playing Tyranids for a long time will be kind of familiar with the concepts, but fundamentally does a couple of things for you. The first thing it does is it gives you some long range artillery support. Crucially, it can fire at stuff that it can't see, so that's really useful. It's got indirect fire. That's great for kind of catching little enemy units that are hiding in buildings and sitting on objectives thinking they're quite happy. The other thing that it does, which is really useful, is that you can litter spore mines around the battlefield. And that's great because you can block off bits of the battlefield and do clever stuff with blocking enemy units and making them have to take damage if they move to certain places and just mind games, basically. So it does more for you than if it was just a big gun on the back of a bug. Basically. Yeah, so very cool. So that's one way you can build the kit. This is a dual kit. You can also build it as a pyrovore. So this is looks sort of similar on the face of it, but has a very different battlefield role. Alex, what's a pyrovore?
So these guys get a little bit closer. These are essentially pre-digestion beasts. So we've heard of all the feeder beasts that come along afterwards and they gobble up all the biomass. These guys basically get there first, spread the digestive juices to start melting things down, get access to all those juicy nutrients and stuff they're after. So when these
it's
guys
like when you put
down,
vinegar on the chips before you start eating, that sort of thing. Yeah.
So these guys are basically dripping with acid, and the big gun on top, instead of firing spore mines,
hey man,
basically
nice to
fires
see you
out
there. Hope you're doing well
burning
as well and enjoying Venice. Sounds
flame.
like
You can
amazing
incinerate
time.
everything around it, and then after it's done that, come along, gobble up all the flesh.
Nice, lovely. So in game terms, this has almost the opposite role from the Biovore. The Biovore sits at the back of the battlefield, probably on your kind of backfield, lobbing spore mines across the battlefield. This is the opposite. This is scuttling forward or podding in with a Tyrannocyte or something, and then basically forming the part of your early assault. So this is softening up the enemy for either for eating or for assault phase or something like that. Also, in game terms, it's got an ability to kind of take away enemy cover saves. So you can imagine it's kind of literally burning through their cover. So if you're trying to hide behind a tree,
this is the
all of a
glass.
sudden
This
the tree's
is like
covered
the sort of stuff you want to see in like
biological acid
range
and is now just a
refreshes.
little steaming puddle.
Like these
and you're
updates
exposed
to
to the
Pyrovore and
firepower of
Biovore.
the
They
rest
look
of the Tyranid
amazing.
forces.
One of my favorite things about this is, as it did before, is that because it's so stuffed full of these kind of like explosive gases, even if you do manage to kill it, it could explode and kill you.
Yes, it can also explode and kill your own troops, so you do need to be a little bit careful about exactly where you put them. So if you've got little squads of these running around, there is a danger sometimes that they can do a little bit of damage to, which is why you want to throw them right into the middle of the enemy early on, so that when they explode, that it's the enemy that take the hits. But yes, relatively expendable, I suppose. So you're probably dropping these in alongside some Tyranid warriors or some Gene Stealers or something like that, so they kind of support them, close range fire support basically.
That's it. Soften up the target.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Okay, so we've seen loads of stuff so far. We've seen new Gene Stealers, we've seen new Gaunts, we've seen loads of new Lictors, we've seen some fire support. Next up, the last of our Tyranid previews. We have the largest new miniature on its way for the Tyranids. Let's take a look at our last model.
Oh, is this new sound effects? The new high five? Alright, sorry. Oh, dang.
So that was the Norn Emissary.
Oh.
This is a terrifying, giant new
We're finally getting Norn.
psychic monster. Does everything, doesn't it? It's
Haven't got a Norn
huge
Queen.
new terror for the Tyranids. So, Alex, what do we know about a Norn Emissary?
So when the Hive Fleet wants something done and they want it done right, they're going to send one of these. So when we think of like a big synapse creature, we think of it like as a leader bug. It's going to be in charge of a part of the army, or it's going to be a monstrous creature that performs some sort of task as part of the army. But not these guys. These guys are created for a very specific purpose, and they're given essentially a level of individuality, so they can make decisions on the fly to benefit them to complete their mission, which is something we don't really see with any of the Tyranids. They're not given any kind of self-control, whereas the Emissary is basically given whatever leeway it needs to complete its task. So the Emissary in particular tends to be sent after enemy commanders. They're sort of a supersized assassin, and you can see from that brain that they've got some pretty potent psychic potential.
Yeah. So if we can have a look at the model to start with, this is a big kit. So like that is a hefty base. This guy stands taller than a Wraith Lord basically on the battlefield. So it's a big old monster, standing taller than things like anything else that's plastic basically in your current Tyranid army. He's got loads of weaponry for kind of up close killing. So he's got this huge, great size. He's got his claws. He's got some pretty significant ranged psychic firepower as well. So when you're coming up against this guy, he's going to be blasted with kind of psychic bolts as well. As we've seen with some of the other kits for the Tyranids, there are loads of like really lovely, luscious little details all over this in terms of the way that what initially looks to be one creature is actually like a composite of loads of different symbiotes. So you look on the back there and you've got weird little, I guess they're kind of psychic booster brain things.
But those could individually each be another creature. So
I mean, they probably are.
Yeah. So if you just want to make it more and more capable, you just keep adding brains.
Yeah. So maybe each one of those is like a detail of the task or something like this one knows all the planetary codes for the world you're trying to go to, and this one has all we know about the Codex Astartes. So if some of those Space Marines turn up, you can eat them or something like that. A very impressive centerpiece kit. So Tyranids have got loads of like big monster kits, and obviously one of the ways that you can play a Tyranid army is to kind of lean heavily into the kind of monster mash sort of style. But this is absolutely, if you've got that kind of army, you want to have one of these at the center of it because it looks very imposing, very cool, towers over something like enemy captains and champions and things like that, and has the strength and psychic might to basically take on pretty much anything in the game. Like this is one of the kind of alpha units, I guess, of the Tyranid force. Right, but this is a dual kit.
It is indeed.
So there's two things you can make. So the Norn Emissary is the first one, a kind of honed precision killer. The other unit you can make with this is the Norn Assimilator. So Alex, what's a Norn Assimilator?
So the Norn Assimilator
that's really cool.
is basically similar in task to the Emissary, whereby it's got a specific task, a specific target that it needs to take out. But rather than necessarily a commander, it might be an enemy monster or a vehicle or a fortification. So
it's much less subtle.
Yes, so where the Emissary is almost akin to a sniper taking out a key target, this is like sending a bulldozer to make sure that whatever gets hit gets crushed. And as you can see there's some pretty tasty differences between the kits. He's not equipped with all of the psychic brains.
I dig him. He's cool.
He's got brawn.
Really like terror looking with like that front on view with the mouth and stuff.
The two weapons on the bottom are his Tox Injector harpoons. Now these pack an absolute punch, and they're going to go through anything they hit. And you can see he's got those barbs on the chest as well, so if anybody tries to get away from him, you can strike them and drag them back.
Yeah, and there's a kind of toxic feel to this model as well, aren't there? So on the base, obviously, you've got that kind of burning, acidic look. But those harpoons there look like they're kind of primed with poison and things. So while you might send in the Norn Emissary to capture an enemy commander, this guy's not taking prisoners.
Oh, no.
He is like skewering enemy units and like ripping open bunkers and destroying everything that's inside. So he's just an absolute like battering ram of death. So there you can see we talked about the scale of this guy. So that is a Wraith Lord. Wraith Lords are pretty big. They're about the same height as a Redemptor, I think. In that kind of ballpark. So he's going to look about right, going toe to toe with like the kind of medium walkers. Maybe not quite the same height as something like a knight, but actually the combat output on some of these isn't too far off that kind of ballpark. So you could start to you can threaten pretty much anything in 40k. This guy.
But yeah, those Tox Injector harpoons, as you can imagine, as a harpoon can be fired out at range, but simultaneously you can also use them in combat, and they're, if anything, they're even worse.
Yeah, no, he's cool. Right, this is by far the coolest mini.
Both of these kits is that they have.
They started off slow, but I think these last couple, like the Biowar and Pyrovore updates, are really cool, and this dude is awesome, and also like
these guys
cool to see us.
I just want that commander dead. I want that vehicle dead.
If it was night size, that'd be
As part
amazing.
of that, they get some special rules to do.
That'd be the Norn Queen.
So when
No,
they
that exists.
are attacking their target, they'll get some re-rolls. Or if they are specifically after an objective, they'll get a bit of a bonus.
Yeah, so they've got some play in game basically.
Yes.
So if you can either go, there is an enemy unit that I just absolutely want to. I know that if I kill that unit, that the game is going to go favorably for me. You can go, this model is going to kill that unit, or you can go, this is the objective that the game is going to pivot around. I'm going to go for that objective, in which case you get bonuses to this unit's ability when it's near that objective.
That's it. As you said, I think even though he's maybe not quite got the height or the bulk of a knight, given his special rules, if he wants to target a knight, I don't think it's going to last long.
There you go. Okay, so that is, I think sometimes you see new units added to Warhammer 40,000. You're like, that is going to be one of the things to watch.
Yes.
And if you're going to go Tyranids, you're going to be like, how can I find a place for this lovely gentleman in my force? And if you're going to go up against Tyranids, you're going to have to work out how you deal with a model like that. So that is our roundup for the Tyranids. So loads of great new miniatures on show there. We had new G-Stealers, new Gaunts, new Lictors, new Living Artillery, and new Norn emissaries, which is very cool. So loads of that stuff on the way.
Did you have a particular favorite?
Did I have so I like the Gene Stealers. Like it's all cool, but I think I've just got a soft spot for Gene Stealers. How about yourself, Alex?
I think the Neurolictor. I was torn between the Assimilator and the Neurolictor, but there's just something about it. It's that kind of insidious creature that gets behind the lines and causes trouble. It's the same stories you've heard about Lictors for years, and it's with a bit of psychic might behind it.
Very cool. Right. So all of those new Tyranid miniatures are on the way later this year. They all come out alongside the new Codex Tyranids, which we can confirm is the first Codex of the new edition. So if you've got a Tyranid force, paint up your Leviathan army, have fun with that.
We won't see Marines today.
On the way. Space Marine players. I know we didn't get to see any new Space Marines today. You can't win them all. Literally can't win them all. But there's plenty new Space Marine miniatures on the way in the not too distant future. So we will still get to see all of those. They'll still get released. You just don't get to see them today. A big thank you for all of you who joined in. A special big thank you if you took part in the Battle for Ogram campaign.
Alrighty.
It's been really, really fun. I'd like to say thank you for Alex for joining us.
Having me.
A big thank you to Nick for making sure all the tech worked, and a thank you for Notley in the chat for keeping you all honest. A reminder, if you are thinking of starting either a Tyranid or a Space Marine army, a couple of great box sets out there that you can do it with. There is the Leviathan box, which you will still be able to find in a few places. It is sold out online, but there are a few stores dotted around that still have a few copies. So get in touch with your local Warhammer store or your local independent retailer. See if they still got copies. That box is a brilliant place to start either a Tyranid or a Space Marine force. Equally, if you want something a little bit smaller, there are some new starter sets that are on pre-order today from gamesworkshop.com and also from local retailers. So have a look out for that too. There's a range of different great box sets to start a Tyranid or a Space Marine force. With that, I thank you all again for coming, and we will roll through a last video wrapping up all of the great reveals we've had today. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, we're gonna watch this, see if they put in.
One world is consumed, but many more await, full of biomass for the taking.
So, what do we all think of everything we saw today? Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that was cool. I think it is one of those things. I think we, me and Hades talked about it. Updates to old kits are cool. I think the Biovore and Paravore updates were really cool. The Lictor stuff that wasn't the normal Lictor was really cool. I really enjoyed the Neuro Lictor. I thought he was cool. I've already seen Death Leap. I thought he was cool anyway. I did like the Norn Emissary. I think he's really cool. I think that'll probably be my first purchase of any of them. Is probably getting the new big nibs. But that's going to be it. I'm going to head off. It is getting late over here. Thank you all for coming, joining, hobbying, and hanging out and chatting with us. It's been fun. We will see you again real soon. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well. And most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.